Hey, practice owners, we're back for another edition of Coming Back Stronger. And I'm thrilled to have my guest on today. If you're one of the few dentists who maybe practice on another planet or something and don't recognize him, this is Steve Anderson, Total Patient Services. Steve has been around. I don't want to make it sound like forever, like you're old, but been around enough to make a real difference in a lot of practices and practice owners' lives. And so, Steve, how you doing today?
Hey, I am delighted to be with you, Parker, even though we're all across the country. But the beautiful thing about what's going on right now is you can be with just about anybody you want to be with.
Right. Isn't that, we do, my family's scattered. We have a lot of kids too. I think you kind of have half and half. Mine are all finally kicked out. But they're all over the country. My dad's in Florida. And so we've done this. We've done Zoom meetings, which the first one's always bumpy, kind of getting my 80-year-old dad on figuring out how to use an iPad and Zoom has been a challenge. But once you do it, yeah, it's really neat. I mean, suddenly you're together on a Sunday afternoon in a way that you could never be. So, and I think that's a lot of what we're kind of talking about today, or the things that come out of that. Suddenly we have a Sunday afternoon family get together that we wouldn't have had. We really almost honestly wouldn't have thought about it if this whole coronavirus situation hadn't come along. So the neat thing is there are some opportunities that can come out of that. And I wanted to, reach out to people that I knew were thought leaders and opinion leaders and had seen enough of practice ownership and dentistry to know what's what and, get their ideas and opinions. So you were at the top of the list, my friend.
Thank you.
So you're, you talk on a lot of things, and you're very, I guess, inspirational in a way for practice owners who may not see their practice in a certain way. Kind of one of your things is practice culture. And so maybe we'll start with, or if you'd like, how about this, first of all, spend a couple minutes, tell us who you are, and then what does culture even mean for somebody today?
Got it. So Steve, I'm a change agent, and I figured out a long time ago, I love to build stuff. It fires me up. I've been building organizations, my whole career.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were nice enough to name me Businessman of the Year, which I didn't know what that meant at the time. And I have that up on my wall. I walk by it every morning to remind me what I'm supposed to be doing. And but I love to grow people and organizations. That's what I do. And we do that in a lot of different ways. Our Total Patient Service company, which is an education practice management company, we do seminars all over the country. We've been doing them nonstop for the last month online. We have a whole team of practice advisors that work with practices to change their results and take them to a much higher level. Our secret sauce in that organization is case acceptance. Mm-hmm. It's all about the human side of dentistry, which dentistry is about people. It is not about teeth. Mm-hmm. And we have systems for that. And as an outgrowth of that, as you've mentioned, we created an organization at the suggestion of the dentists called the Crown Council, and it's an affiliation of practices that are committed to creating a culture of success in their practice, in their lives, and in their community. And as you know, I wrote a book on that called The Culture of Success, and it's got 10 natural laws for creating the place where everyone wants to work. And here's kind of an interesting deal on that. I've got a company called Total Patient Service, and I do not believe in having a patient-centered practice.
Okay.
Now, I'll talk about this in terms of coming back. Mm-hmm. I do not believe in having a patient-centered practice. What I do believe is that you build a great practice with a great team. And the highest responsibility and most important thing for starters is to create the right culture and the right team. And that team will take care of your patients in that order.
Okay.
Right? It's that order. So in coming back, I would say that this is the equivalent of rebooting your computer. Now, Parker, you've done this. Yep. I've done it. It's not working.
Right.
The computer's not working, and you call technical support, and what's the first thing they tell you to do?
Reboot it.
That's right. And because they know 90% of the time what's going to happen.
Right. Well, and sometimes it's after you fought with it for 2 hours,
right?
And
they
picked
know
every button, and you should have just called at the beginning. And
they
just
know that it'll fix the problem. Yeah. This is a reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Not one that we expected, not one that anyone would have wished, but we've shut down. For all practical purposes as an industry, we've shut down. And this is an opportunity to say, okay, unexpected. This gives us an opportunity to really look at what we're doing and come back, maybe in a different way. I think clearly there's going to be some things that will change that are going to be mandated. We don't know what those are yet. So we can't do anything about that. But we know there's some things going to change. And there are some things that you can change now that will make a difference in the future. So I'm going to, if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Absolutely.
And I always know that I am never the smartest guy in the room. I have a very simple mind, simple concepts, and sometimes maybe too much so. But I'm gonna share a concept that I hope will be useful to everybody that watches, that you can act on today and do something about. So this is what I call the donut discipline. A simple word picture, a donut. Everybody can relate to a donut. A simple glazed donut. Now, here is the word picture, which is the meaty part of the donut, the part you eat. That represents everything in life you cannot control. You can't control it. In contrast to the donut hole are the things that you can control. Now, which part is bigger?
Absolutely.
The donut, right?
Yep.
All the stuff you can't control. Okay, so let's list it. What are the things that you cannot control? Okay, you can't control the economy, especially right now. You can't control the weather, the traffic. You can't control the coronavirus. You can't control other people. You can't control the news, right? There's a lot of things that you cannot control. And right now, one of the biggest challenges is there are so many things we can't control. It's frustrating. All right, so here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. If you're listening, put yourself back into a situation like now, when you were involved in an event where you were out of control. I mean, there were things going on around you could not control. For me, early on, one of my first memories of an out of control experience was learning to snow ski. Right? And anybody who snow skied knows about that experience. It's, you don't know which way to turn, the skis get crossed, things are flying all over the place. So we're in the middle of an event that has put all of us in a situation where there's a lot of things we can't control. So what are the emotions involved in being involved in something? Well, they're negative. They're what I call red emotions: fear, anger, frustration, despair, hopelessness, feeling distraught. And if you haven't felt any of these over the last few weeks, you've been living on another planet, right? We've all gone through this, right? So those are the emotions that are involved when you're out of control. All right, now, in contrast to that, let's look at the inside of the donut. Okay, the donut hole. That represents things we can control. And in this illustration, obviously, it's a lot smaller than the donut because our perception is there are a lot more things that we can't control. So what can we control? Like right now, what can we control? Well, you can control your attitude. That's a choice. You can control your actions. That's a choice. You can control your own fitness, right? What you choose to do, your diet, your response to others, a lot of things that you can control. So anybody who's listening, I'm going to challenge you to make a list of the things you can control. Now, here's the next challenge. What are the emotions involved when you choose to take control? Okay, what are the emotions involved when you focus on your attitude, your action, your fitness, your diet, all those things? What are the emotions? They're what I call green emotions, right? Courage, power, self-esteem, hope, encouragement, right? When we choose to focus on the donut hole. This is a simple concept. It's not new, and we've all violated it in the last few weeks. Now, here's the reminder. When you focus on the donut hole, when you focus on the things you can control, and then you subject yourself to those positive emotions, what happens is you discover that the donut hole gets bigger. And I've got a picture of this. So you discover that the donut hole gets bigger the more you focus on the things you can control. The things you can't control are going to have to take care of themselves, but we discover we can influence more and more things. So here is a challenge. This comes from Lucille Elson. She is 102 years old. This was just in the Washington Post over the weekend. She's 102 years old. She was born at the outbreak of the Spanish flu, right? So she lived through the Spanish flu, through the Depression, through World War II, through everything. 102 years old. And here is her advice. She's still, not only is she 102, she lives on her own, in her own home, and she is now delivering food to all the neighbors, keeping the neighbors fed at 102. Here's what she said. To cope with this virus, okay, this is her advice to America, and all that's going on, I would tell people to not get stressed about planning far ahead. You can't do it. A long time ago, I started making a list every morning of what I had to do. It was the only thing I could control, and I stick to it. So, metaphorically speaking, Lucille Ellison has a donut every morning for breakfast, meaning she focuses on what she can control and tries not to worry about the things she cannot control. So, simple idea, but my first recommendation is, for right now, we would all be well served to go back to the basics of making a daily list of what can I do today, right? That will make a difference. What can I control right now that I can do something about? There's a lot of things I can't control. I can't control when we're going to go back to work. I can't control what OSHA is going to mandate. I can't control what the federal government's going to do. All I can do is worry about what I can control. Simple concept. And if everybody would do that, then we would watch our influence expand. One last example of this, Parker. I've been watching over the last couple of weeks. I know the ADA has been busy lobbying, doing a lot of things. And I think everybody's favorite sport in dentistry is to criticize the ADA. That's everybody's favorite deal, right? So my suggestion here would be this, is if you focus on the donut hole, what can you control, right? What can you control? You may not be able to control the ADA, but here's what you can do is you can make your voice heard. If there's something that you see, you know what, if we were able to do that, then things might change, things might be different. Let your voice be heard. Write a letter, send an email, find a delegate, let your voice be heard. You can control that. You may not be able to control what they do, but you can control where you choose to put your time, effort, and energy. Stay focused on the donut hole. So simple concept. I know that's nothing new. And I think all of us would be well served to remember the donut hole.
Yeah. Simple, but very, very helpful. So this is why, so I'm going to disagree with you on one thing right here. You are the smartest guy in the room. This is why seriously, I always walk away from a Steve Anderson thing like that. And I think, my gosh, why didn't I think of that?
Well, like I said, I'm simple-minded. I try and keep, even I can understand it. All right.
But it works.
For the now, Parker, it's the donut hole. Now, let's talk about going back stronger. I'm going to give 4 recommendations real quick.
All right.
Right. And again, right now, I don't think anybody's an expert. This is unprecedented. We were sharing before we got started. Even Warren Buffett has said, I got nothing, right? I mean, one of the richest guys in the world, he's never been through this. So we're, to a great degree, we're in uncharted water. So there are some things that we can focus on that are in the donut hole. Okay. So I'm going to give you 4 things you can focus on in the donut hole to come back stronger. And I'm going to use a sports analogy here, if that's all right. Since We can't watch anything.
I was
There are
going to
no
say,
sports.
we need that right
Right.
now.
There are no sports. So let's play an imaginary game here.
Right.
All right. Maybe it's apparently the online gaming community. That's the biggest thing in sports. That's the only thing that anybody can.
I don't know if that's a good thing, but you know, it's something. Yeah.
Okay. So these are 4 characteristics of a winning practice.
Okay.
And I'm going to recast these because I think these are 4 things that are in the donut hole that right now, while we're rebooting, we got time to think and contemplate and analyze and recreate. Mm-hmm. This is a recreation period. So first characteristic, if you're going to play the game, if you're going to come back from being on the bench and play the game, you got to decide what game you're playing.
Okay.
What's the game? Is it a production game? Is it just about production? Is it being the best in town? What's the game? And does everybody on the team, is everybody playing the same game? Right? Simple concept. Mm-hmm. But here would be a thought. I was talking with a practice the other day that in the month of February had the biggest month they had ever had in the 40-year history of their practice. Huge month. Huge. They're now trying to figure out how to survive, which a lot of people are. Right. How are you going to survive this? Talk about a radical change. The game has changed. The game in February was, gee, how can we build it ever bigger? How can we even do more production? And now, wow, it's like, whoo, big game change. What's the game we're playing now? Is it just survival? So here would be my thought. You know, if we were going to play a game of Saturday morning pickup ball, that's the first thing we'd have to decide. Are we playing football, basketball, baseball? What are we going to play? What's the game we're playing now? And I don't have that answer. That's a personal answer. That's everybody's got to decide for themselves. What is the game we're playing? Are we just surviving now? Is that what we're trying to do? Or is there a bigger purpose behind what we're trying to do? What's the game? So it's time to recreate. I believe it's a great opportunity to recreate the purpose. Is why are we doing this? Why do I go to work every day? And it goes beyond survival. I know we're in survival mode right now in a lot of ways, but beyond survival, we're going to come back from this. So look, if you look back, I had this discussion with the practice just earlier this week. They're in the middle, Steve, of doing a practice expansion. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they got their permits. Everything was approved a month ago. They've been waiting. So now they're trying to decide, like, oh, wow, should we expand? It's probably not a good time to expand. You know, what's going to happen, uncertainty in the whole deal. And so I took them back and I said, all right, let's do some analysis. Last time we went through anything similar to this was 2008. When we were in the middle of the financial crisis, we thought the world was coming to an end, right? And everybody was paralyzed. No one would do anything. Nobody was buying anything. We were just like locked on and locked down because everybody was just so afraid. Well, what happened? We then emerged and went into one of the biggest eras of economic expansion we've ever had, right? Here's the word picture. And then we went back. I mean, we looked at we looked at 9/11, same thing, right? Everybody got paralyzed by fear, just like we are now. We looked at the dot-com crash. We went through all those things. And I said, what happened? What was the ultimate result? Well, in fact, one of the dentists said, he said, you know what we did during the 2008 financial crisis? We added on to the practice. It was the same thing that happened, right? So I'm not talking about making unwise decisions. I'm just saying that one of the word pictures is the windshield versus the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. When we're looking out the windshield, like we're doing right now, into the future, and we're unsure and we're not sure what's happening and we're fear and all that, we're locked on, the storm looks ominous on the horizon. Mm-hmm. But then when you look in the rearview mirror, 2008, 9/11, you look at all those things that have happened in the past, you look in the rearview mirror and go, man, you know, we made it. You know, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be because we have revisionist history. We forget the trauma once we've been through it, and then we make through it and goes, well, we made it. It wasn't that bad. We'll do this. We have revisionist history. So remember, the rear view mirror looks a lot nicer than the windshield. And we're looking through the windshield right now, and it is not pretty. We're looking at statistics that are making the Great Depression look like it was kindergarten material.
Right.
And we're going to make it. We're going to make it. But while you're going through it. So here's my challenge is it's time to reconsider. What's the purpose? Why do we really do this? I know for a lot of people, like their financial hopes and dreams and goals, and it's like, man, those just got blown to pieces, right? It appears. So is that the only purpose, is just financial? What's your purpose? Okay. Number 2, and this is related, which is, how do you know if you're winning? How do you know if you're winning? I think in the past we've measured winning with, production and collections and all those things. Those are important. That's, you got to have those. But how do you know in the future? How are you going to measure winning? There's a great piece of work that everybody's familiar with Simon Sinek, the guy who came out with the why principle. I don't know if he came out with it, but he popularized it. And he's got a great new piece of work that talks about the infinite mindset that's different than the winning mindset. The winning mindset is win the game, right? Score the most points, be number one. Whereas the infinite mindset is about sustainability. It's about purpose. It's about the long drive. What are you really trying to accomplish? So how do you measure winning now? Now is a really good time to rethink that, because how you look at winning today will determine how you play the game. How do you measure what you do? What do you consider winning? One of the biggest challenges that all of us have in this area is what I call attachments. We measure our lives in terms of attachments. What's an attachment? An attachment is all the things that we accumulate. Sometimes they're materials, sometimes they're accomplishments. So, it's the business I built. It's the person I married. It's the kids that I have. It's the house that I built. All of those things become attachments, and they become a part of us. And we define ourselves, if we're not careful, by those attachments. And when you start taking those attachments away, we go into emotional crisis. Evidence of that is many dentists, when they sell their practice and retire, they go into an emotional crisis because their attachment is, I am a dentist. And you take that identity away, you take that attachment away, it's like, I'm nothing if I'm not doing dentistry. Well, you're not what you do. You're not where you live. You are not defined by the person you married or the kids you have, or all those things. You're not defined by all those attachments. You are who you are. And so, for example, Steve, when you said, tell us about yourself, I'm very, very cautious about how I answer that question now, because I look inside and say, okay, who am I? What do I try and represent? What are my values? What's at my core? Right? I speak in public. I train. I've written books. I've done all those things. Those are things I've done, but that's not who I am. I'm not what I do. I am who I am. And right now, going through everything we're going through, that merits some serious introspection. Who are you really? You're not defined by your practice. If we package up your practice and we put it to the side, you're not your practice. You're not your team. You're not your family. You're not, all those things are great. They're good to have around us, but that's not who you are. So if you define winning by all those attachments, those attachments start going away, you're in trouble. Emotionally and psychologically, you will be in trouble. So examine those. You're not your attachments. You are the core of who you are. So how do you know if you're winning? Time to re-examine that. Number 3, if you're going to come back strong, you've got to have a strategy. We call it a playbook. If you're going to play the game, you got to have a playbook. And too many times we just go about doing what we do and we just keep doing it without analyzing, do we really have a strategy of how we do what we do and why we do it? So you got the time to reset, to reboot, build your playbook. The playbook's going to be different moving forward, but that playbook includes, who do you want on the team? What's your strategy? What's your scheduling strategy going to be? What's your marketing strategy going to be? What's your infection control strategy going to be? We don't know that yet. We still have some definition, but build your playbook. Don't just be thinking you're going to come back and be business as usual. Have a strategy, start building that. And what we're recommending is that when we do get a date of when we'll be able to go back, that you're going to want to get a head start on that, pull your team together and retrain. They'll have been off for who knows how long. Retrain your team, almost as if you're starting a new practice again. What do you want your team to know, to do, to believe, to see? If they're going to be part of this new team moving forward for your reboot, you got to retrain and you got to have a playbook to be able to do that. So those are the first three, right? So what game are you playing? How are you going to define what winning is? Create your playbook. And then number 4 characteristic is, who's your coach? Every great team has a coach. So who's your coach? Now, what's a coach's job? And Steve, I'll tell you, I could not answer this. I didn't know how to answer it until I met Chuck Daly. So you'll remember Chuck Daly as the coach of the Detroit Pistons. He is also, what put him on the world map was he was tapped to be the coach of the 1992 Olympic Dream Team, the basketball team. First time in Olympic history that professional basketball players were allowed to play in the Olympics. And he coached him. And it was all the greats of that era: Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley, David Robinson, all the way down the list. So he and I had this chance encounter. I mean, totally random chance encounter. We ended up at dinner together. This was several years ago. He's passed away since. And we end up as table mates at a business dinner, totally unplanned. And so I sit down, he sits down, I look at him and I thought, oh, this is going to be a good dinner. I don't think he ate. I just fired questions at him all night. But he asked me a question. And one of those questions was, he said, Steve, what is a coach's job? I said, well, coach. And he goes, no. He said, a coach's job is to make sure that the team wins. And I'd never thought about it like that. He goes, yeah. I said, that's the coach's job, to make sure that, he says, it's a player's job to play, right? That's what they do. Is when I'm a player, play the game. It's a coach's job to make sure the team wins. And he said the most challenging part in professional basketball is when the players are done playing. And he said, usually that happens in the playoffs. We've been on the road for 9 months. Every night in a different city, they're done, they're exhausted, and we're in the playoffs when it is the most critical time to win. And he said, that's when everybody runs out of gas. He said, that's where great coaching comes into play. It's a coach's job to make sure that the team wins. So here's my question is, who's your coach? And that coach can take on a lot of different faces and roles. One is, I believe, everybody, not just Dennis, but everybody needs a mastermind group. You can call it whatever you want, but you need a team of trusted advisors that you can meet with on a regular basis, that can be your informal advisory board, that you can run things by, and they will be the mirror. They'll sit there and reflect back to you to say, is this really what your thought process should be? They don't tell you what to do. They're just the mirror. I actually have 3 of them that I belong to, three different groups that have 3 different perspectives with 3 different goals, and we meet on a regular basis. They have been invaluable to me over the years. We all need that. We are not wired to do this alone. Not just now in the middle of a crisis, but at all. The longest longitudinal study that's ever been done on life expectancy is still going on at Harvard after 70 years. And they have tried to determine what are the key factors for life expectancy. They've narrowed it down to one thing: It's not diet, it's not exercise, it's not stress, it's not any of those things. It is a long-term intimate relationship. That's what determines life expectancy. In other words, they figured out science-based. We are wired to do this together. We are not wired to fly solo. And I would suggest that the people that have had the biggest struggle over the last 30 days in this crisis have been the ones that have been flying solo. That they've been trying to figure it out all by themselves. They have no one to talk to, and they've been alone. We are not wired that way as human beings. You gotta have a coach. You gotta have a team. So whether that's a mastermind group, whether that is a professional coach that does that as a thing, a practice coach, whether it is a mentor, we all need mentors. But if anything comes out of this experience, I would hope it is that everyone analyzes who their home team is and who are the people that are the closest to them that they can rely on for emotional support, for direction. I've got a handful of people, Parker, that call me every day, and I call them. It's just what we do. We're each other's wingman, right? That's an aeronautics term, the one that's right there watching out for your back. It's also a motorcycle term. So I ride motorcycles, and you always got somebody watching your back, right? So who's your coach? So I've gone through those fast, right? So what's the game? How do you know if you're winning? Create your playbook and then decide who's on your team, who's your coach, who's your mastermind group, who are the people that you want to have around you moving forward that are going to help you come back stronger and then stay stronger. Now, I'll say one more thing because I've said way too much. One of the things that we know, science, and the science proves this, crisis, like we're going through right now, does not necessarily create long-term change in individuals. For example, Johns Hopkins University Medical Center has studied heart attack victims for decades. And what they found is that 2 years post-heart attack, over 90% of heart attack victims have done nothing to sustain long-term change. Nothing, 90%. Crisis does not necessarily create long-term change. So we're going through this crisis and everybody's doing the what, coulda, shoulda, woulda. I wish I'd have saved more money. I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd done that. And what I would suggest is that a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, that 90% of us will have gone back and we will be doing the same things we were doing 6 months ago and a year ago, unless you do something different. And so my last suggestion here is to create a journal, a change journal. Write down all the things that you have been thinking about. I should have done this, I should have done that, or I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. And then you got to put a plan in place and go back and look at that 6 months from now, a year from now, and go, how much have I done really in those areas to make the shift in where I want to go? There's so many valuable lessons that can be learned from this experience if we put the right things in place to then come back stronger and then sustain long-term change. So that was a lot. Sorry for
No, I'm on page however many of notes. And it's interesting you say that. We have a mutual friend that I've known 30 years who makes fun of me about my journal. And he always calls it your diary. He said, "You still write in your diary?" And I do. I have for years. And it's interesting because I'll write nothing. I'll write a little thing. I would write news, the big news item of the day is, I don't know, President Clinton's going to be impeached or whatever it might be. And I do this thing every year. I go back and sort of skim the year. And the reason I say this is interesting is it'll be December of the same year I started. And I'll go back and think, I don't even remember that. Are you kidding? Right. That was the biggest thing of the day. I was worried about this employee, or I was worried about this, this thing we're going to start in business, and I don't know, or this crisis thing that was happening that day, and I've completely forgotten it. Yeah. Now, the good news is what I try to do is measure how much I've moved away from those or from those. So no, I love that. I'm a big believer in journaling and that. I've never heard of a change journal like that, but that's
Well, I think it's applicable right now just because we're going through so much economic turmoil, emotional turmoil. You know, everything is up in the air. One other, this is one I love. I picked this up about 2 years ago. This is a donut hole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I picked this up 2 years ago from Hal Elrod, who wrote a great book called The Miracle Morning. And he suggests this routine that you go through every day in the morning to get focused on the donut hole, right? And he and I had a conversation, and he recommended an app called the 5-Minute Journal. The 5-Minute Journal. You can download it. And it's called the 5-Minute Journal because it only takes you 5 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. And it walks you through a process. And I've been doing it for 2 years, and I love it. In the morning, you have to write down 3 things for which you are grateful.
Okay.
Gratitude is a powerful, powerful emotion. It's in the donut hole, right? So the things that you have that you're grateful for. So 3 things you're grateful for. And then 3 things that you are going to do to make today great. Right? So there's your list. Like, what am I going to focus on today to make this a great day? And then the last thing in the morning then is affirmations. There's some fascinating science around affirmations. We all know about affirmations. Mm-hmm. The latest science says that conversation is more powerful than affirmation, meaning instead of making statements, you ask questions. So you say, instead of, I'm courageous or I'm brave, or you say, am I courageous? Well, then you got to answer that. So yes, I am, because, I'm going to face today and I'm going to focus on the things I can control. Am I kind? Well, yes, because I'm going to make it a point to be kind to the people around me, even when they get on my nerves. In other words, the conversation does more to influence behavior than the affirmation. And so what I challenge people to do is change the affirmation into conversation. What are the questions you're going to ask? Then at the end of the day, you get to write down 3 amazing things that happened that day. And it is so incredible when you look back and you go, man, there were some pretty cool things that happened today, right? Amazing things that happened. And then the last thing you write is, what would you do differently, or what are you going to do tomorrow to make it even better? And then it gives you an opportunity to snap a picture and attach it to the day. But it gets you in it. That's all donut hole stuff, all donut hole material to get you focused on what you can do today. So I loved it. It's been great for me. I love to go through that process every day.
Journal. And I also think it applies to, you get to a certain vintage, and, heart attacks are an issue, and, all these health things are an issue. And I've read that before, or I probably heard it from you. The change that what could be more important than you had a heart attack and you survived it? Because a very large percentage don't, and even a larger percentage don't survive the second one. So you have all the information you need. You know what bad result comes from it because you've lived it, and 2 years later you're back to it. But it does become that daily thing, doesn't it? It's a little teeny. You don't have to change everything dramatically today, but little teeny daily things, and suddenly you're eating right, and you're doing a little bit different each day. And I believe I think I did get this from you, the power of writing it down, the power of journaling it, the power of getting it out of your head, just putting it on paper. Sounds silly, because you know what it is. You've thought about it, but writing it down is very powerful.
One more thing, Steve, and I know we've gone way over the time.
That's okay. You are a wealth of information. So
I want to emphasize one other thing. I'm a big believer in this, and it's tough. Mm-hmm. It's tough in the midst to grasp this, and that's Napoleon Hill popularized this in Think and Grow Rich. And if you haven't ever read it, it's in my top 10 list. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It was written during the Depression, so it's very applicable right now. But one of the things he talks about in there is that within every setback or failure or tragedy, there's the seed of its equal or greater success, or advancement. Let me say that again. So within every crisis or failure or setback is the seed of its equal or greater advancement or success in the future, if you find the seed. Man, I have to remind myself of that anytime. I mean, everybody's got a story. Parker, you've had setbacks. Yep. I've had plenty of setbacks. Yep. And I have to remind myself of that principle and ask myself, where's the seed? Where's the seed? Where's the seed? And right now, I think all of us could ask ourselves that question. Where is the seed? Because there is always things we can learn, and there's the seed of something that has the potential to be greater in the future than anything we have experienced in the past. Crisis can create great gifts. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're hard to see when we're looking through the windshield. But then when we look through the rearview mirror down the road, we go, oh yeah, that's where that started. That's where I learned that. That's where the idea came from. It was in the midst of the setback or the crisis. So where's the seed? And that's what I'd challenge all of us to ask that every day. Where is the seed? Not what have I lost or what am I losing, but where's the gain? Where's the seed? Where's the opportunity moving forward? I think that's one of the things that makes our country great, is that mentality of looking for the opportunity even in the midst of tragedy and crisis. Where's the seed?
Well, and I would suggest to anybody who's listening or watching, the seed is not on CNN or Fox News.
The worst.
There are, and you and I talked before, Steve, and we didn't go to dental school, so we don't have that, right. That mindset of 4 years of awesome. I'm going to get out and see patients, and my comfort zone is there. The protocols, steps A, B, and C. And if I want to know how to do something, it's in a book from dental school. The business part, I leave to somebody else. Well, now, I mean, if you're a dentist, you are as far out of your comfort zone as you could possibly be. And I think the challenge is you think, I'll just listen to a Harvard MBA. They know the answer. Well, they don't. You said it earlier. You're right on. Nobody's seen this.
Everybody's trying to. It's FIO right now. Figure it out.
And that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
You can look at it, through your lens. And if your lens is, this is horrible, this is terrible, let me turn on the TV and see if they have an answer. I promise you, between, I was telling this to somebody the other day. I remember when I would come home and watch, check the news at 6 o'clock and get the paper in the morning. And that was my news. And if something happened in between, there was a cycle. Now, man, you turn the TV on or you pick this thing up and they have to get your attention.
Right.
They got to have an ominous sounding, headline with ominous music to keep you locked on. And what I would say is don't go for it. You're right. The seed is not there. Turn it off. It'll be there in the morning. If we're going to go back to business, Donald Trump will text us and say, okay, and if we missed it at 4 o'clock, good tomorrow morning, but it's not going to happen that way. So we have a gift of time, and you have really laid down some awesome seeds, I think. In fact, I think you have a lot of seeds here.
Thank you. Can I make one other suggestion, Steve? I'm going to share my screen one more time.
Anything.
On the Total Patient Service website, totalpatientservice.com, under the free resources section, if you go to downloads right here, there is a little nondescript thing here that says maintaining a culture of success. I put this together specifically for right now, right? I love culture. Again, I wrote the book on it. This is for right now, some specific suggestions of what we think every dentist ought to be doing to stay focused on the donut hole instead of the donut, to come back with a culture of success. So that's there. You can download it, and I hope it's of help.
And I also wanted to point out, I see your the Crown Council symbol there. I'm a big fan and believer in Crown Council, only because I think you're spot on. Communities help. So if you're talking to a small group of people or you're in a community, you have a lot of resources in Crown Council that you can use this gift of time. I know a lot of videos, a lot of content, a lot of stuff that is just again, turn off CNN. You know, if you don't catch up on, you know, last 3 seasons of Game of Thrones, you know, you're
Right?
fine. But you do have a gift of time to do those things that when you're seeing patients and head down and working every day, and you say, oh, I'll get to that when I have time. You have time.
You do have time, and it's a choice, Steve. One of the most phenomenal things that is just astonishing to me, the biggest trend right now is the billions of hours that are being spent on online gaming right now. It's the biggest surge on the internet is gaming. It's like, really? That's how we choose to spend our time? Really? Yeah, you got a choice.
And
You
it's
got
all, it's at the, you know, at the other end of the same mouse, you know, is online gaming, or, you know,
or
something.
do something, stay focused on the donut hole.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
Steve,
Thanks, Steve.
seriously, you, and I seriously do mean that. You're one of the smartest guys I know, and I know a lot of people.
Nice.
And I have never, I don't know how many times I've seen you speak, heard you speak, you know, been in a small group, chatted with you. I literally walk away with something, either I put it in my phone that just makes me think about it. So 2 days later, I'm thinking, that's really smart. How come I've never done that? So
Very nice.
You have a lot of gifts, and we appreciate you sharing those today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And good luck to everybody. Stay focused on the donut hole. There's a lot more that we can do than we're doing.
You got it. So practice owners, I don't know how any better way to leave it than that. So until next time, hang in there, and we'll see you coming back stronger. See ya.